Well, good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'm glad that you met me here again for Wisdom on Wednesday with Ray. I've been excited by all the things that we've been talking about over the last couple of months with Wisdom on Wednesday. I just want to send a big thank you out to you all who have been sharing in the comments, who have been sharing our platform on your social media content, for reaching out privately and letting me know that some of the content's really been a blessing to you, some things that really hit home and they're real timely. I appreciate that feedback, and I'm looking forward to more feedback. And even if something is amiss, I'm looking to get better. And the only way we can get better is by people sharing and people reaching out so we can continue to sharpen our tools together. And as usual, continue to like, continue to share, subscribe, share it with your friends and share it with your enemies, share it with as many people as you possibly can so we can grow our channel. Now, today, as we continue to dive into this wisdom journey that we're all on together, today, as I pray and I ask God to give me something that will be relevant for all of us, is this, that wise people, we have to learn to manage our emotions. Wise people have to learn to manage our emotions. Now, just because we're wise doesn't mean that we don't have bad days. Just because we're wise doesn't mean that we don't have days where our emotions are all over the place. Just because we're wise doesn't mean that we don't feel anything and we're robots and nothing can get in and nothing can penetrate this wall that we've put up. When we manage our emotions, what it means is we're ultimately being honest with the emotions. We're present in the day that we're in. We're present in the situation that we're in. We're present in the feelings that I'm going through. Because ultimately, success doesn't mean that I don't feel. Success doesn't mean that I don't get my feelings hurt. Success doesn't mean that a person may have cut me off and I may have said something I shouldn't have said. That when we're in our emotions, we have to be honest with our emotions. And before we can manage them, we have to be honest that we have them. I'm really happy about a scripture that says this: be angry, but sin not. That life is going to cause problems. Life is going to cause frustration. Life is going to cause things that will make you think things that you didn't think you were going to think in the beginning of the day. You see, when we're on this journey to make ourselves better, it seems at times where we've been trying and we've been trying and we've been trying, and it seems like we're hit a dead end. That's called frustration. But just because you're frustrated, it doesn't mean that you have to stay in that fixed position. Frustration only gives us an evaluation that we've been trying, and the things that we've been trying may not be feeling the best. But just because you're frustrated doesn't mean you're not making a successful move in the right direction. You see, frustration doesn't mean wrong all the time. Frustration just means that the terrain isn't as easy as you thought it was. You see, frustration just means that I have to work a little harder than I thought I actually had. And people aren't saying things that I want them to say. People aren't responding the way that I want them to say. People may say things to me that may question me, that make me feel like they're questioning my integrity or my intelligence. Am I on your street? Frustration can come from you trying to explain something to somebody and they just don't get it. Have you been there, wise person? Frustration doesn't mean that you're wrong or the person you're trying to speak to is wrong. It just means you're speaking the wrong language at the time. When wise people manage their emotions, what the best aspect of managing your emotions is, sometimes you need to take a step back. When you take a step back, that's a physical message to yourself that maybe I'm too entrenched in this situation. Take a physical step back. I need to analyze this perception because I think I'm too close to it. And just because you take a step back doesn't mean you're taking a step in a direction to go the other way. You're only taking a step back to get a better view. Because frustration can make you feel like you've made the wrong choice. You see, frustration can make you feel like people aren't in your corner. But sometimes when people they want the best from you, that will breed frustration. When people challenge you, it will make you start questioning yourself and wondering if you're doing the right thing. When people stretch you, it will make you feel like they're questioning your integrity, that they're even wondering if you can do the job. Have you been there, wise person? You see, When you're honest about your emotions, now you can actually give your emotions to God. You can walk through your emotions. You can be honest about your emotions. You can say, I want to be a nice person, but today I'm just not in a good mood. It's okay to not be in a good mood all the time. It's okay to not feel your best sometimes. It's okay to not feel like being the happy person with the big old smile on your face all the time. It's okay. If that's your personality, God bless you. But sometimes you don't feel like smiling. Sometimes you don't feel like being happy all the time. Sometimes you don't feel like being the person who's always the peacemaker. You see where we're going? Because that's a large burden to carry. And when you're carrying the burden to always make people feel better, ultimately we go home at the end of the day feeling like we haven't done enough for ourselves. We made everybody else feel safe. We made everybody else feel comfortable, but I feel frustrated, or here's the one, I felt unheard. I felt like I was in that meeting and I was giving the best of my heart, and I felt like they snickered or they laughed or they didn't hear me. I felt like I studied and I gave the best that I could possibly give, and people don't take me serious. That's frustrating, friends. When you have a dream, you have a passion, and you're trying to express it and get that thing out of your chest. You have a dream that you want to accomplish, and people don't see it the way that you see it. That's frustrating. That can lead to anger. But the best way to evaluate your emotions is to recognize how you respond in certain situations. That's why we have to be honest about our emotions. How do I act when I'm around people that I'm not comfortable with? I need to pay attention to this so I can grow and I can outline the way I act so I can enhance my behavior. I can enhance my thought process. I have to ask myself the hard questions sometimes. Why can't I keep up in this conversation? Am I bored in this conversation? It's okay to be bored with people's conversations. Everything everybody says isn't interesting all the time. I know we're polite and we don't want to tell people they're boring, but some people's conversation is boring. And we just have to be honest with ourselves and not always want to make everybody feel good all the time. You see, when you're frustrated, it's very difficult to be honest because it seems like everything you say is like you're speaking another language. It seems like you're upset about things or you're passionate about things that other people don't care about. But when you're honest about that, what you can say is it them or is it me? Now, this is when we really want to peel the onion back, because every time we're frustrated, it's not always the other person. Every time we're disappointed, it's not always the other person. Every time we're upset or we're angry, it's not always the other person. Sometimes we think too highly of our own opinion. Sometimes we think too highly of our own rationale. Sometimes we think too highly of our understanding. Ultimately, friends, sometimes we just don't grasp things fast. And when we don't grasp things fast, sometimes we think people are purposely talking over our heads. So we have to be able to manage our emotions and know that people aren't picking on us, that people aren't victimizing us. But ultimately, we have to unburden ourselves and be honest about the things that frustrate us so we can grow in this area of our lives so we're not always upset. So we can grow in this area of our lives where we don't feel like we're the odd man or the odd woman out. When we understand how to manage our emotions, what can happen is now we are moving into the place of leading and teaching other people how to continue to go forward in spite of how you feel. Now, this is where we're really going to let the rubber meet the road. If you really want to take yourself, your family, your job, your business venture to the next level, you're going to have to learn how to navigate success in unpopular terrain. You're going to have to learn to continue to go forward in spite of how you feel. You're going to have to learn how to continue to be attentive regardless of if people hurt you. The best thing you can possibly do is to learn these words. When you want to bring something to someone's attention, when they've hurt you, you have to say it this way. When you said, I felt. When you say it that way, friend, you're not accusing. What you're basically doing is all you're talking about is what was said. And when you say that, most people respond like this. I may have said that, but I didn't mean it that way. If they're telling the truth or if they lie, that don't matter. But now what we have an opportunity to do is to deal with what was said. And if it was said and it hurt us, now we have an opportunity to let this person know that you hurt me when you said this. You hurt me when you did this. You hurt me when you allowed me not to feel like my authentic self. You made me feel like I was doing something that I wasn't doing. Now what you do is you've allowed yourself to grow and your emotions aren't holding you back anymore. Now you're in a space to where you can actually tell people without it being confrontational, unball your fist, Christian friends, that there are some conversations that we have to have, but we have to remove the contentious emotion. That sometimes we just need to talk and get those things out of our chest and just say, listen, when you said the other day, I was really hot, I was upset and I was frustrated, but I calmed down, I prayed and I thought about it. But I think that these things are important enough that we need to discuss them. And moreover, you're important enough to me that I want to make certain that we don't have this between us. That's called managing your emotions. Now, we're not always going to get this right. Many times those things happen after an argument. Many times these conversations happen after a blow up. But don't we all want to grow to a spot to where our emotions don't have us handcuffed? Don't we want to grow to a spot to where our emotions won't make us stay in the bed all day? Don't we want to grow to a spot to where we're feeling sad and we don't want to leave the house? We need to have the wherewithal to say, my emotions will not keep me bound. My emotions will not allow me to cut off relationships that I know are good for me. My emotions will not put me in the space of where I was when I was trying to fit in as a teenager and I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't feel like I had a place. I didn't feel like people cared about me. You see, that spirit will always come around to make you feel like you are not valuable, that you're not warranted, that you don't have a space or a place. But when you have your emotions in check, that you know that you have these emotions, God gave them to us all, but we're not going to allow our emotions to dictate our lives. We're not going to allow our emotions to dictate our progress. We're not going to let these scenarios play over and over and over and over in our minds as we overthink the outcome or the possible outcome if we have a conversation. Do I have a witness here today? That sometimes the conversation in our head is far worse than the conversation that comes out of our mouth to our friend's ear. That when we have power over our emotions, we'll be able to be honest and allow people to speak life to us. I grew up in a space to where when I got married as a young man, I got married at 23 years old, and that's the best decision I made besides meeting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. But in that 24 years, we've had a lot of conversations that my wife was upset with me and I was upset with her. We may not have agreed on everything, but ultimately, I learned this lesson late. I always was a fixer in our relationship. I always just wanted to get to the bottom of whatever the issue was. She wanted to have a conversation with me about it, and I just wanted to get to the issue, fix it so we can get back on happy street. But I wasn't being authentic to my wife. I had a mentor that I was talking to her about my marriage, and I was talking to her about the conversations in our marriage. And I said, I don't like to fight. And I stuck my chest out like that was something proud. I just keep the peace. And she listened to me in my proud moment. And she says, you big dummy. I said, woman, I just bared my soul to you. What do you mean I'm a big dummy? She says, you married to a woman? I said, I am. She says, you telling me that you don't argue with your wife? You telling me that you just talk logical to her? You telling me that you just go right to the baseline of the issue? I said, yes, ma'am. She says, well, what you're actually giving off to your wife is that you don't care. What you're giving off to your wife is that you're uninvested. What you're giving off to your wife is that she's emotional and you don't get emotional. And it dropped on me like a ton of bricks that I thought I was being my authentic self by not arguing. I thought I was being my authentic self by allowing her to know that she had never hurt me. I thought I was being an authentic self by letting her know that I'm a man of steel. Anything you say can just bounce off. What was happening is I was letting my wife know that I wasn't in the relationship with her, that I was in it, but I wasn't present. You see, friends, when you're present in a relationship, be it your wife, your husband, be it your children, when people know that you're vested, sometimes you're going to disagree. And sometimes you do have to have a conversation. That was one of the most freeing things that happened in my life. My wife wants me to go back, but now I argue. I let her know. But she smiles at me, so sweet, because even through my arguing, even through now when I tell her when she hurts my feelings, she looks at me with the most sincerity and she knows I love her. It's not just coming out of my mouth, but she knows I'm vested. She knows that now she knows my true heart about how I feel about every aspect of our marriage. There's never a late moment for us to learn. There's never a space where we can say, oh, I'm old enough. We've been married too long. Now I know this. I'm so glad that God gave me that blessing, because now when I look into my wife's eyes, she and I both know that we're both being authentic to each other, that we love each other enough that I can disappoint her and she can disappoint me and we can come back together. You see where we're going? When you have a genuine relationship, we have to learn how to manage our emotions. And in managing our emotions, we have to be honest about our emotions and let people know when they disappoint us. Let people know when they hurt us. Let people know when they say that that's not something that we like. They may not like that we say it, but they understand the point of view in which we're coming from. That's the best part about being in a relationship. You're both training each other how to treat each other. And so when you're in a work relationship with a supervisor and an employee, all of those aspects, you have to train people how to treat you. You can't just be a rock. You can't just be this spiritual giant that nothing bothers you. You pray about everything. That's amazing. I'm glad for your life. But for the rest of us, our feelings get hurt. For the rest of us, we get frustrated. We wake up cranky. There are days that my wife asks me if I'm going to the shooting range or if I'm going to the gym. She says, you cranky around here, man. You got to get up out of here. And I thank God for that she knows me well enough that even when I'm not being articulate about what's going on with me, she's been around me long enough, or she knows that even when I'm not managing my emotions properly, I've given her the license to speak into my life when she knows I'm off. So friends, I want to encourage you today to be honest about your emotions. Manage your emotions. The only things that you can fix are the things that you will face. So sometimes you're going to be sad. Some days you're going to be disappointed. Some days you're going to be frustrated, and some days you're going to be outright angry. That's okay. Bible reminds us this, to be angry, but sin not. So sometimes you're going to be off your game, but don't stay there too long. The best way to manage your emotions is to be honest with your emotions. Live in the moment. Experience it. Feel it, but don't stay there. Remember who your identity is. Remember who you live for, and make certain that everything you do is unto the glory of God. This is Ray with Wisdom on Wednesday. I hope it was a blessing to you. It was a blessing for me. Have yourself a wonderful day. God bless.